G5 Classified, your one-stop shop for all things Group of 5 college football. Stepping up to the microphone are your hosts, Gabe Kuhn and Kyron Samuels. Now, let's talk some G5 football.
Yes, sir. Welcome in. We got episode 3 of the G5 Classified podcast. Gabe Kuhn, Kyron Samuels. You know what the deal is. We have a concept of a plan. Shout out to Donald Trump for that one. Of what the show is going to go like today. We're going to get to winners and losers here off the top. Second segment, we're going to bring on, AAC player, defensive player of the week, Elijah Herring, linebacker for the Tigers, off an 8-tackle, 2 TFL, 1 sack, forced fumble recovery performance. Is that pretty good, Kai? I think that's pretty
damn good. I love it.
Seems pretty good. We're going to bring him on in the second segment. And then as we get out, we'll make some picks and everything like that. But Kyron, what's up, man? How's it going?
What's up, man? Happy to be here. Listen, I said last week, I tweeted it out. Week 2 was one of the funniest weekends of college football I've ever seen. So I'm excited to dive into the topics this week because we had an all-timer.
Yeah, can we start with like the big elephant in the room, and that's Northern Illinois, the old Huskies. I remember getting recruited by them going out to DeKalb. There's not much in DeKalb, Illinois. I can tell you that right now. But they get over top of Notre Dame on the road, number 5 team in the country, 16-14. Late field goal from 35 yards gives them that win, and they have put themselves in the G5 conversation, like in the legitimate conversation. They get to the AP top 25 at number 25, even though no one had any thought of them. Thomas Hammock, it was really cool to see that. It's hard not to be really happy for that guy. The emotion he showed, their head coach after the game, awesome. But what the hell, Notre Dame? A week after, it felt like Marcus Freeman and that team bought themselves a lot of good grace by beating A&M on the road. They lose all of it immediately.
Yeah, it wasn't a fluke either. I watched the game from start to finish. We'll talk about it, I'm sure, here in a little while. But, Riley Leonard, his quarterback, is from my hometown. He's a Fairhope kid. So I watched every chance I can get. Yeah. And it was just ugly from the start. I can't say that it's a fluke. I will say the play that NIU scored their only touchdown on, I have to give credit. It was an incredible play by the quarterback, against the blitz. He had pressure on his face. But he threw up a prayer, and the running back caught it and took it to the house. But other than that, I feel bad. Before we get into, how big of a win this was for Northern Illinois, I feel bad for Marcus Freeman because his defense did everything they could, man. With the turnovers, they only gave up that 1 touchdown. They were put in bad positions all game. You only give up 16 points to a Group of 5 team. You expect your offense, especially at home, to be able to get you at least 17 points, to be able to get you in the 20s. I feel bad for him because, man, he's going to get the flack. He's the head coach. Heavy is the head that wears the crown. That's how it goes. But, Mike Denbrock comes in from LSU, you get the high profile transfer, that quarterback, you get some receiver transfers. You're expecting to make a big leap, even if it is only 2 games into the season. Right. But man, it was tough to see that. But I have to give NIU all the credit because, like I said, there was no fluke involved. They played their butts off from start to finish. They're the more physical team, and I can't believe I'm saying that, but they were the more physical team in the trenches, especially on defense. On offense. They were able to move the chains, and even though they weren't scoring in bunches, they were able to get a first down, keep the clock moving, get another first down, keep the clock moving. In those 3rd and 2 and 3 situations, they did a good enough job getting the ball over the first down marker and keeping those drives going. So a ton of credit. They were a prepared team. They were a tough team, and they were well conditioned. They didn't look like they faded at all because that's the big separator, right, from G5 to P5.
Those big bodies start wearing on you,
especially, and that depth starts to show up. But it never showed up in that game, man. So kudos to them, and I'm just interested to hear your thoughts about it.
Yeah, listen, I love Ontario Brown now. I know his name. 20 carries for 99 yards. He had the long 83-yard touchdown you're talking about. 2 catches, 126 yards. That's a hell of a game, man. That's one they're going to get to tell their, kids and grandkids about when they're done with the whole thing. I will say this, though, and I sort of want your opinion on this because it's not like a lot of people know about the history of Mid-American Conference football and MAC football. They play on – we love action, though. We love Tuesday and Wednesday night games. I was thinking about this. It kind of reminded me of like App State beating Michigan, early in the year, back in the day. We know about that famous blocked field goal return at the end of the game to seal the deal. That might be the biggest win for a MAC football team in the history of all their football programs. Like, I don't know if there's anything particularly close.
I mean, NIU did, they made it to
An Orange Bowl against Florida State. But they got smacked around.
Right. They got smacked
Western
around.
Michigan was in the, I believe, the Cotton Bowl one year.
Yeah, one of those. But I agree with you. I think it's the biggest win, especially in the context, right? Like Notre Dame's coming off a big top 25 road win at Texas A&M. This is supposed to be like a coronation week, right? Where we're like, okay, this Notre Dame team, we can take these guys seriously. This is a game that's going to put them on the national spotlight even more, where they can showcase how good they are, how explosive they are. And then we get out there and then, they're trailing at halftime and we're like, oh, okay, here we go again. And I think everybody's expecting Notre Dame to find a way to win that ball game, right? And they had plenty of chances. So I'm not going to say they didn't have, they had plenty of chances, but they ended up losing that game. And there was, like I said, there's no fluke about it. One question I'll ask, what do you think about the decision to kick the field goal there? Would you have tried to throw a Hail Mary, run a gadget play, or are you okay with attempting the 62-yard field goal, whatever it was?
I was saying Hail Mary the entire time. It's just you're not going to make that field goal in that situation
with
a college kicker.
Exactly. And
you know what I mean? Like, just throw it and say screw it. You know what I mean? And maybe you have some athletes on the outside. I know Riley Leonard has the arm to get it there. So, right. Like, maybe you have some athletes on the outside that can go win a jump ball against some of those MAC corners and MAC DBs. I was watching the game, sitting there with my dad because he was in town over the weekend. And I'm just saying, man, why are we doing this, Marcus? Right. I know, like, you want to just think you can – okay, maybe this field goal will go through, we'll get lucky. Maybe it doinks off and then goes. It felt like a pipe dream to even attempt that.
Yeah, 100%. Now I'm excited, though, for NIU, man. That Bowling Green game against NIU is now going to be like a marquee matchup kind of. You got that Bowling Green team that had a chance to beat Penn State at the end of that game.
What the hell was that, man?
Man, hey.
What the hell was Penn State doing?
And it's funny because it's not like they weren't scoring points. They were scoring. They were matching scoring. It was the defense.
Penn State ran the hell out of the ball. K-Tron and Nick Singleton both had 100.
100%. Drew Aller didn't play a bad game by any stretch. No. He made some pretty nice throws.
He threw one pick.
Yeah, he threw one pick. But it's just like that game is going to be a hell of a matchup. I'm excited to see that matchup now with NIU and Bowling Green coming up here.
All right, now you have to holler at me, man. We had the Nebraska-Colorado game. It was supposed to be the revenge game for Nebraska, and it was the revenge game. You had the Shedeur Sanders pick six. You had all that, and it just wasn't ever really close. Nebraska didn't score in the second half. I was impressed with Colorado's defense at that point, but the game was just, you never thought Colorado was going to ever weasel their way back in there. What'd you think about the effort from Colorado on the road? Tough environment. I get all that, but what do you think about their effort?
I want to choose my words carefully here because the effort, if I'm taking that word at face value, I think those kids played damn hard. I think those kids, especially on defense, had a very good showing in the second half. They won in the second half 10-0, Colorado did.
Right.
I'm looking at the game plan, though. I'm thinking, hey, why are we running at the teeth of the defense 3 times in a row on 2nd and 1 when you clearly aren't able to run the football? You're backed up in your own, on minus territory. It's still within reach. It's a 2-possession game at that point. Why are we, handing the ball off with the walk-on running back in the teeth of the Nebraska defense that you haven't been able to block all day? Why are we still, so soft in the trenches as far as you have 3 down linemen at multiple points in the game? What are we doing here? You don't have the horses yet to do that. I'm looking a little bit at the game plan from start to finish. I'm looking a little bit, why are we throwing backed up on the 1-yard line? People are on Shedeur, and I think Shedeur, he has to learn how to eat that.
Bad decision. You can't throw from the left hash
100%
all the way to the right sideline. I know it was one-on-one coverage, 100%. But you can't just assume your guy's going to win that or break it up. Yeah. And when you're in your own end zone throwing the ball, you can't do that.
Yeah, he took full credit for that. He took full responsibility.
Although some people tried to say he did, tried to act like he didn't. He said it was a rookie mistake, and everybody's like, "Are you saying that the wide receiver made a rookie?" But no, he said I made a rookie mistake.
He said he made a rookie mistake. My bigger point is that I think you have to protect your guy in that situation. Your offensive line is not built to protect backed up on the 1-yard line. You need to quarterback sneak it, if that, or hand the ball. I mean, I don't know what you do because you can barely run for a yard, but quarterback sneak it and just get it out a couple yards and just play for the punt. Hand the ball off and see what you can do. At least get 1 yard, 2 yards, get a little bit of breathing room. Don't even put your guy, and especially your offensive line, in that situation to where that is going to be a key factor because, like we said, they shut them out in the second half, 10-0. Without that pick six, it could have been a different game momentum-wise. I think that pick six is what really turned the tide, especially from the crowd. I mean, the crowd was already on a 10, but after that pick six, I mean, they went to another level, man. So I'm looking at the game plan a little bit, and I love the swagger. I love the attitude. I love a lot of what they're doing adjustment wise. I think they're a much better second half team from what we've seen the first 2 weeks of the season. But it's kind of segueing from them. I think that is what it is. Nebraska, Matt Rule, Dylan Raiola with his little Mahomes magic. Listen, I was skeptical of Raiola. I really like him a lot. But, man, he has some of that Mahomes magic that people are talking about. He threw a BS ball across his body over to the opposite side of the field, and the dude looks like he's about to intercept it, and he falls into the receiver's hands. Another play bounces off the defender's hands right into the receiver's hands for a touchdown. He has some of that Raiola magic that you just can't teach. That Mahomes magic that you just can't teach. And I was shocked because I'm like, man, when stuff like that starts happening, you have to kind of like just give it up, say, hey, this guy might actually be one of those.
He's got it. And the cosplay is a little much, though. I got to be honest. Just straight up, like not even hiding it, even remotely. Doesn't have his own swag, but it's cool. It is what it is. I will say this about him, though. Like, he doesn't have that Patrick Mahomes uncorked deep ball, throw it 80 yards downfield, but he can put zip on it when he wants to. He's got a good enough arm. And what amazes me about him, and like, I guess you should think of, like, you should have thought about this. He's like the son of football players. His whole family played football, even though it was like O-line. But what blows me away is the anticipation he has as a true freshman. Like, he's throwing guys open, and you don't see that from trues, man. You see true freshmen usually take advantage of coverage busts. You see true freshmen getting now routes with some run after the catch, and coaches are sitting there trying to scheme up to start the game to give them easy throws to, like get them a little bit of confidence to carry them through the game. Matt Rule, their offensive coordinator aren't doing that at all. They're opening up the whole thing for him and saying, go. They have like trust in him immediately. And obviously they saw it in training camp. But, man, I'm a believer in that guy. Like, that dude is unreasonably good at this age, and I think he's only going to get better.
100%. That's what I was going to say, man. The trust that you have to have in a kid like that in a big-time situation. This is on prime time, NBC, Peacock, big rival. Dion in Colorado is coming to town. All the eyes are going to be on you. The
sellout crowd at home.
The moment didn't look too big. He thought, this is the funny part, we're all giving him shit for, the cosplay, but he thought he was Patrick Mahomes. He truly believes he's Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah.
So, before the game, they're doing like, the split screen where he does the exact Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, jumped up, the knee,
he gets in the game.
Knee tuck jump.
He's doing the same passes. He's throwing the bullshit pass across his body to the receiver, but they're catching it. He's throwing the ball.
Taking his pregame snaps with no helmet on.
Right. He's throwing the ball that he probably shouldn't throw. And it's falling in the receiver's hands, bouncing off the defender for a touchdown. So it's that type of confidence and that type of belief that I believe is going to carry them a long way. And the good thing about it is we get to see 3 years of this. This is a guy that's in his infancy, right, as a football player. If he stays on this trajectory, we could be looking at a one-on-one type guy. And I was a little bit skeptical, with all the high school hype. I saw him, play in Georgia, and I didn't think he would look as good as a lot of people thought he would. But, man, when he got to college, and obviously the Nebraska coaches believed enough in him to give him the keys and fully give him the keys in this week 2 of this true freshman season, I got to give him a ton of credit for that.
Yeah, I mean, and I got to be honest. I mean, Shedeur, it's not like he played horribly. He just couldn't. No, Nebraska was getting after him. 5 sacks for 33 yards, and he was a little shook. But, no doubt Dylan Raiola played better than him in that game just because of the circumstances that were, given to Dylan Raiola. He was upright the whole game. He was more comfortable. But it's kind of crazy to think about that second college game ever. You outplay Shedeur Sanders, who will likely be a draft pick coming up here in 2025, but likely a day one, depending on how the rest of the season goes. Now, Travis Hunter, though, I still have to say he's still the best draw in football, college football right now. I don't give a damn what you say. He's a solid corner. I'll give him credit for that. He can be a big play corner at times, depending on the opportunities. People don't necessarily throw at him all the time, but he had another receiving game, 10 catches for 110 yards against that Nebraska secondary. Here's the real question, though, and I know this is a big debate segment right now, and I'll give you my opinion in a second, but I want to bounce it off you first. I want to give you the first chance to talk about it. At the next level with Travis Hunter, what is he a first-round talent in? Is it wide receiver? Is it corner? What do you think? And maybe he'll play both. We'll see. I don't think he can play 100 snaps, though, in a game in the NFL. That's just not how that works. But if you're picking one or the other, which one are you picking?
All right. I want to start by saying I believe he is a first-round talent at both. I think he is, based off, the history of drafting corners. Like we see a guy like Emmanuel Forbes go top 20. We've seen guys, even like Trayvon Diggs, who played the position for one season, go top of the second round or wherever he went. He went in the second round. We've seen NFL teams reach on these corners because of the athletic profile, because of the ball skills, because of that. And Travis has all of that. He has great instincts. I think he could be a great zone corner, playing in one of those cover 4, cover 2 teams that sit in that a lot and just let those corners stay in zone and read the quarterback's eyes and just come up and make tackles. He's great at that. I thought he had a very good game as a defensive player against Nebraska, but I think he's a special wide receiver. I tweeted, I think he's the best wide receiver in the country because he does it as a side gig. I mean, he is listed as a cornerback that plays offense. Corner is his main position still, but I truly believe if he was able to hone in and just be a full-time wide receiver, he would be the best wide receiver in the country. And I tweeted it. I looked up. I'm like, man, this dude has 8 catches for 80 yards, and it's the start of the third quarter. It's not like it was in all garbage time, right? Like he was eating when the game was still somewhat within reach. And then I tweeted, how the hell does this guy have 100 yards again in this game? I'm like, I can't believe it. So he's that type of player where he's going to get his regardless. I think the money long-term, if you're looking at the wide receiver contracts in the NFL, that's where the money is, right? But the corner's getting paid a lot of money too. And I think it may be actually more value for him to get drafted high as a cornerback. I mean, if you look at his skill set and his ability level, maybe getting drafted in the top 5 to 7, his best chance might be at cornerback. But the second contract is what everybody really wants from in the NFL. And I think wide receiver would be his best chance at that. And I think it's his best position.
I think his best position is wide receiver.
Yeah.
But here's the question you do have to ask yourself too. Like when we talk about wide receivers and how deep every single NFL draft class is with wide receivers, you sort of have to say, like, can you get lost in the shuffle in that conversation? I don't think he will, because I think he's unbelievably talented. His ball skills are crazy, but that also helps him with his projection on the other side of the football. So, like, I think this is a really up in the air question. I think, if I'm being honest with myself, I think he's a late, if he just played one side of the ball and we're just like splitting them up and he had a different name, I think he's a late first round pick, late day 1 pick at corner. And I think he is a pretty early round pick, top half of the first round at wide receiver. I truly believe that. I mean, this guy is ridiculous. He's fast as hell. He can run every route in the route tree. He's good at exploiting zone defenses because of what he knows about defenses on the back end and how people try to cover you. He can read defenses, and we know a lot of wide receiver, especially at this level and the next level, is about converting your routes, finding empty spaces. So I think at the wide receiver position, man, he's got a leg up. But again, like, if you want to draft him as a corner, I feel like you are well within your rights to go do that, because his athletic profile definitely fits. And this is going to be such an interesting thing to follow. Like, I truly believe that once we get to the offseason and start talking the NFL draft, I think he'll be, top of, Mel Kiper and all their big boards. Sure, he will be. But you do have to start asking yourself the question, of the 32 teams in the NFL, where do they actually see him projecting? And based on where he is picked, I think you'll start to see their actual plans.
Yeah, and I think as people get into the tape, like, I think you made a very good point here. I think when people really get into the tape and they really start getting into Travis Hunter's film, I think they'll see what we're talking about. I think you'll see a guy that looks like an all-pro receiver. The game is incredibly easy to him at both positions. But he looks like a guy that can go out there in first week as a rookie and get you 100 yards, especially with some of these teams that we see. Like, if he were able to, go to the right situation, like a Minnesota Vikings and Justin Jefferson, that just needs a guy to step in and be the number one. Now, I'm not talking about it translating to wins or anything like that. But if you need a guy to come in and be your number 2 to a really good guy, or a number 1 on a team that just needs somebody to feed the ball to, Travis Hunter is that guy for you day one at receiver. So I think when they really get into the film, they'll see how talented he is as a receiver, and it may be a little bit less controversial than we think.
Yes, sir. Now let's get to our winners and losers of week 2. Let's hop in. I'll go ahead with my first winner, and we only have one winner. We're doing one of each. I'm going to go with Texas, man. They just made it look easy on Michigan, 31-12. I'll get to Quinn Ewers in a second, but what really kind of jumped out to me, I guess is the best way of putting it, about the way Texas played Michigan, is the trench play was pretty damn good. And I understand they have Kelvin Banks, one of the best left tackles in the game, or in college football right now, and he'll be a first-round pick. I get all that. But like every time they needed a couple of yards, every time they needed to keep the offense on schedule, they had the ability to run the ball, even against a stout front that has Kenneth Grant, it has Mason Graham, guys that will be drafted next year from Michigan. And they have a really good front seven in general. And Texas kind of had their way with them at times. I was impressed with that. But on the defensive side of the ball, their D-line got after them. They did not let Donovan Edwards do anything. They didn't let that run game do anything. But part of that too is like, I think every team's going to start seeing this about Michigan is Michigan's just not good enough offensively. You have Davis Warren, a former walk-on at quarterback. They don't have a guy who can throw from the pocket. He certainly can't break the pocket and make a play. I think most teams that play Michigan the rest of the year are just going to pack the box and say, you're going to have to run it on us. You're gonna have to you're gonna have to run it on us. You're gonna have to throw it over top. You're gonna have Davis Warren, or if you bring in Alex Orji, they're gonna have to beat us with their arm. And I don't know if they have that capability. But real quick, Quinn Ewers.
Yeah,
I gotta say, I'm starting to see him as a equal with Carson Beck at the top of the 2025 NFL draft. He's got the size, he's got the ability, he's got the arm, the anticipation is there. And here's the biggest thing. And I know he did this against Bama, and he's a really good road quarterback, but like the comfort he has now, you can't bother him anymore. Even if you get pressure in his face, he's fine. I love what I saw from Quinn Ewers, and I think it's only going to go up from here. And to be honest with you, I wouldn't. If you have Heisman rankings, he should be 1 or 2 right now. Him and Ashton Genty from Boise State, like he should be right there.
Yeah, I don't know if I'll go that far and put him in the same category as Beck. But what I will say, and I said this before the season, is that he's becoming one of the more underrated players in college football based off of the things that you said. I think that people, for whatever reason, and I know that the arch hype and the arch mania has a ton to do with that, are just desperate to see him get out of there. I'm like, man, you can do a lot worse than Quinn Ewers as a quarterback. We've seen it all over the country. I mean, just look at the Michigan game. I mean, that's enough of an explanation there. So I think Quinn is a very good quarterback. I think where he's growing at is like his decisiveness. That's the biggest thing I noticed. He's so decisive now. I mean, there was times when he was still learning to grow. He was still going through the emotions and going through the progression as a quarterback in terms of being comfortable, like you said, in terms of knowing where to go with the ball. Do I need to put touch on this ball? Do I need to zip this ball in? He looks like he's figuring all that out. The ball was out on time. It was out in rhythm. When he needed to put air on the ball, put a little air in there. When he needed to zip it in, he needed to zip it in. When he needed to throw a layer ball, he threw a layer ball. So his comfortability and his ability to, for the game not to be too big for him now, I think is where he's made a ton of progress, and you're seeing it.
And then I think you have a little bit of a different take, though, in general about Texas being like a big winner. Because I kind of agree with this thought. It's like Michigan's just, they don't have it. They don't have it this year. And it's very easy to see.
Yeah, and I just don't think they're a very good football team, top to bottom. And when you even look at it, right, like Mason Graham, a lot of people are saying he could be the number 1 pick in the draft. He could be a top 5 pick. Their best players, outside of Will Johnson, he still looks like an all-world player. But outside of Will Johnson, their best players aren't playing great football right now. I mean, Mason Graham did not look great in that game. He had a sack on a play where the defensive end, pushed him up in the pocket and, where he was getting blocked and then fell into his lap. But if you watch that game, he did not look good in that game. So the players that they're expected to make their biggest impact aren't playing well, and the other guys just aren't there yet in terms of their ability to make a major impact. So I think they'll get better as the season goes along, but I don't think they're just a very good football team. I think 7-5, 8-4, best case scenario is realistic for them.
Now holler at me about your winner.
My winner is Alec Goldrich, the head coach at South Florida. I know they ended up losing the game 42-16. But man, this is the second time in a row he's given Alabama hell up until the very end of the football game. His teams are always prepared. His offense produces points. He was the offensive coordinator for the team that beat Alabama at Tennessee, back in 2022. He was the guy that was constructing that hyper offense that we all know and love, but he was calling the plays. It was his offense. So it was good to see him, have another showcase game. And I know Alabama fans are like, we need to cancel the 2026 game. We don't want to play these guys again.
I want zero problems, big fella. No more problems.
But I love what he said in the press conference. And, it's funny when coaches say this stuff, they're like, they're interviewing for their next job, which might be true. But, I mean, it's a damn good interview. He said, listen, I'm not here for any more victories. We proved we could play with anybody in the country for 3.5 quarters. So we need to figure out what we're doing in that last half of that fourth quarter to truly take over the ball game and win those type of games. But for what he's doing with that team and where they were before, I think he's a massive winner. He's going to be a positive name when the head coaching carousel starts to turn. He's going to be a guy that people look towards.
And I'll tell you this: at AAC, when you're talking about the University of Memphis, it's gonna be a challenge, man.
Oh.
It's coming up before we know it. That I said it before the year. I think they have the best roster outside of Memphis in the AAC, but it's just about schedules and who was going to finish higher. Tulane looked pretty good as well, but USF definitely proved something to me. My big loser, I'm going to Fairhope, Alabama. I'm going to Riley Leonard, brother. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I know how much you love this guy. I know at one point there were rumors about him transferring to Alabama and being their quarterback. But I didn't see it, man. 20 for 32, 163, 2 interceptions, couldn't throw from the pocket. And I got to be honest, do you remember from Mississippi State, Nick Fitzgerald? Do you remember him? His freshman and his sophomore year, we look at him, we see these stats, and he wasn't efficient, but he had really good athletic ability, definitely had the ability to throw the football, not necessarily from the pocket, though. He'd get out and make plays that way. But his passing yardage numbers were never that high. But you saw his freshman and sophomore year, you're like, hell, man, if he could develop into a pocket passer, this dude's going to be a NFL draft pick. He could be a first-round pick. We've been talking about Riley Leonard like that for a minute, man. He's Nick Fitzgerald to me. Not enough efficiency, not comfortable throwing the ball from the pocket. I know you can make some excuses and say, well, he's not used to the surroundings and it's a new offense and all these different things, but you're playing against Northern Illinois. A lot of those things should be hidden for the most part. I just thought Riley Leonard really – everybody had really high hopes for what he'd be in this system over there at Notre Dame with Mike Denbrock. And it has fallen short, man.
I 100% agree with your point that it's time to walk back some of the grand statements that people have made, including myself. But I do want to say that I think it was a tale of two halves. I think the first half, he played some pretty good football. He made some really good throws, and there was a wide open pass. He made a beautiful pass under pressure that would have been a touchdown if the guy catches it, drops it. Another middle of the field ball on third down over the middle of the field, receiver drops it. Those first half drops, I think, really demoralized the offense as a whole. It probably discouraged Riley a little bit, and I think really changed the dynamic of that ball game because that's one play to get into scoring position and then the scoring play. If those plays are made for him, I think he gets into a little bit of a groove. Now,
man, if that's the man, I don't give a damn. Any of that, that is the reincarnation of Nick Fitzgerald.
Hey, no, but listen,
that's exactly what that is, brother.
The second half of the ball game, I think, was mostly on Riley, especially that interception on that last drive, the penultimate drive was just inexcusable. You can't make that throw in that situation. You weren't really under pressure, and I understand. Listen, they have been getting whooped up front, and you were spooked. You can't make that throw regardless. You can't have it in that situation. Some of the throws on third down where he's just, dirt balling some of the balls, even though he's under pressure, if you are the quarterback we think you are, you have to be able to make those kind of plays. We've seen guys under duress. I mean, I'm not comparing to him, but I've seen Shadur make some pretty crazy throws under duress.
Hell yeah. Getting hit right under the chin.
Right. So I would like to see him make that progression in that second half of the ball game.
He's running out of time, by the way, to make that progression. I'll tell you that.
And I think the offensive line is struggling a little bit. They lost 2 NFL tackles, and then they lost their center, Zeke Correll, is now at North Carolina.
And they lost their left tackle to start the season, right?
Yes. So they are. It's a makeshift line, and they are struggling very bad. But man, Riley, if you are what we think you are, you have to live up to the bill.
For sure.
And I still believe you can, but we got to see it.
Yep. But all right, your loser, because we do have Elijah Herring standing by. What's your loser for the week?
My loser for the week, and I'm just going to be a little bit honest here. The LSU Tigers, coming off of that embarrassing loss. I won't say it was an embarrassing loss. Coming off the loss to USC, but then putting up an embarrassing effort for like 3 quarters against Nicholls State. I look up and Nicholls State is going toe-to-toe with LSU for 3 quarters, 3.5 quarters. It's not the same as Alabama and USF, right? USF is a very talented team that has, been a bowl team, has a dynamic quarterback in Byron Brown, very good coaching staff top to bottom. Nicholls State should not have competed with LSU for 3 quarters. And I know the final score would make that game look like it was just a blowout and they just kicked their ass. But that's embarrassing to me. I think the standard needs to be higher. I think there needs to be a little bit of discussion.
They ran the ball for 64 yards against Nicholls State, bro. That's all you got to say.
It was
you don't even have to elaborate on it, bro. Your leading rusher against Nicholls State had 19 yards.
Yeah, so
they got to be better. You're Louisiana State University. Come on, brother.
We can leave it at that. That was embarrassing. They have to play better.
Man. It's crazy. It's absolutely nuts. And I agree with you.
I want to give a quick shout out as far as a winner. Just a quick bonus.
Okay.
Tennessee looked like a top 10 team in football. I just got to say
51-10. Good.
Yeah,
God.
they look like a damn good team against top 25 team. Got to give them a quick shout out.
And Nico didn't even play that well.
No, he didn't.
What happens if he does play well? Now, we're going to talk to a former Tennessee linebacker here in just a moment, but he's now at the University of Memphis, won AAC Defensive Player of the Week for his performance against Troy. Elijah Herring will join the show next.
I think Jabari Smith Jr. and I don't want this to be true, but I almost feel maybe Tobias Harris, yo.
What's wrong with Tobias Harris? We've had this discussion. All the guy does is give you a double-double, 20 and 10.
Bro.
That's it. That's it. Every night.
Who?
Tobias Harris.
Stop that. Tobias Harris gives you a double-double 8 times a year. Stop that.
What?
He gives you
Eight times a year.
I'm a fan. And this is what I'm saying because I continue to be like, he's a dude he's a tease. It's a tease. It's like, God, dog, he's sexy. But it just won't work. Like he should be, but it's there, but it's just when the games, it's just consistently. I don't know if it's you need more people to believe in it, something, but I don't want, and also just to get lost in the rest in that Houston team.
Tune in to the Night Court podcast with your hosts, Rob Fisher and Brevin Knight, on the Bluff City Media YouTube channel. And all we've talked about a lot is Norvell and kind of what he does and the fact that he's playing against Memphis and, it's his original school and all that kind of stuff. There's a motivation there. Do you think Ryan's familiarity with Norvell helps in the game plan we know he's going to do wild shit. Like we know it.
100%. I know that Silverfield and staff are probably thinking the same things. I'm like, he's had 2 weeks. There's going to be something that they're going to come out with that we have not seen before to try to get some sort of spark offensively.
Even in that sense, Norvell has tendencies, right? He said it in the press conference today. He said, I know that he's going to watch this press conference on the way to his radio show tonight. And I also know in the second drive of the game, he's going to do a trick play. I know your flow. I know how you do things. I know everything there is to know about you. Ain't nothing you're going to do is going to surprise me. Tune in to Tigers Untapped with TJ Willis and Trey Lasley every Wednesday at 3 p.m. on the Bluff City Media YouTube channel.
All right, we have a Defensive Player of the Week in the American Athletic Conference in our midst right now. Elijah Herring, 8 tackles. Let me see if I can get this whole thing right. 8 tackles. We had 2 tackles for loss, a sack, forced fumble recovery. But he's joining us now. Elijah, what's happening, man? How you doing?
Good. How about y'all?
You're doing well. Now, I have to start here. You're talking to 2 offensive linemen, and me and Guy talked about this before, like the show. I remember in practice having more fights with linebackers per capita than anybody else. Like, how much do you hate O-linemen? Can you let me in on your hate for O-linemen?
It's most definitely a big hate factor there. It's more like a love-hate relationship with O-linemen because they might be some of the coolest dudes on the team, but once you get on the field, they the most annoying and they just in the way of everything. So it plays hand in hand for sure, but it's a bunch of love and hate for the most definitely.
Yeah, those little extra shoves, you just want to kick their ass. I can't, man. I'm telling you though, you think it's like O-line, D-line, and O-linemen. Sometimes in practice, we tap on each other. We're like, just chill this play.
That brother-in-law.
Linebackers always, why you got to come downhill and hit us in the face every damn time?
For sure.
Yeah, it's absolutely wild. Now, this week, Florida State. So I always know. And obviously, you went to Tennessee. You've played in environments like this before, but a lot of your teammates haven't. So, how's the intensity at practice? It probably I would imagine it's been picked up.
Oh, well, yeah, most definitely. I mean, every other school would do when they playing in front of how many people can fit in that stadium. I mean, you're gonna have some type of music blasting at practice and just have it as loud as possible as you can. So, but I mean, we got a bunch of old guys on the team. You know, some of them some are everywhere. So it's not really much of a worried about the crowd thing. It's just more mentally locked in, more focused than anything.
Yeah, you've been hearing a lot of war chant at practice. We can get that over the loudspeaker.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I hear that. So have you been able, like, I know you can't, like with those types of environments, you can't really tell someone about it. You can kind of give them like little pointers, but you've played in environments like that before. Have you been like trying to help some people around you sort of get ready for that environment, or is it just like, man, you don't know it till you see it?
Nah, they really haven't asked me too much about it. You know, the coaches, they've tried their best to just like tell them how it's gonna be and just how loud it'll be. So like just be focused and all. But I feel like it's gonna be a great experience for most of those young guys too. Just seeing that many people in one stadium, just seeing how loud they can really get. I feel like it'll be a great experience for everybody.
Yeah, now I have to do one more thing real quick because I don't know if are you on social media? Do you go on like X or like Instagram all the time, or do you like look at that stuff?
I'll be on there, but I just don't. I try not to.
The big Florida State joke right now is they were running around spraying people with water guns. Like, is that like I know from going to practices, like whether it's a hose or a water gun, like that's normal stuff, isn't it? Like I'm sure y'all have something like that for like wet games at practice, or like when they're catching punts back there, they're spraying them with water guns.
Most definitely not. Yeah, it was funny to see, but like if you play football, you know exactly what they do.
Yep.
My question, you know, you were a serious contributor at that Tennessee program. You played in 25 games. You had over 87 career tackles. You made some really explosive splash plays for them. What went into your decision to transfer to Memphis? Because a lot of people would kind of see that as stepping down a level, even though, you know, you play football, you know, if you have an opportunity to play anywhere Division I, it's a fantastic place and it's a fantastic program. What went into your decision?
Just being able to just show what I can truly do, so that I could be a true, you know, one linebacker, a true guy coming in, just be able to affect the team, just be able to help out as much as I can.
Yeah, and you were on my radio show a couple of weeks ago. Your brother, you left him behind at Tennessee. How's he doing? What's his role over at Tennessee?
He's doing real good. You know, they got one of the best defensive lines in the nation. So you know, he's taking his seat. He's playing his role. You know, just taking every opportunity he can and just learning from like those guys, James Peters, Joshua Joseph, and all those other guys in the room.
Yeah, so I don't know, like if he like needs like a spot to land, if it ever comes to that, I know you have some good words to tell him, right? I mean, for sure.
Yeah. I want to know, man, what's it like for you in the NIL era, right? Like this is different from when me and Gabe played. You know, and don't say anything that you get you caught up or say anything crazy. But but what's it like having to deal with like maybe agents coming after you or marketing people coming after you, or you know, having to deal with compliance and stuff like that? What's it like in this NIL era navigating that as a player that's trying to make football the most important thing, but you know, you still got to handle your business off the field as well?
Yeah, most definitely. I feel like for me personally, it puts me in like a business mindset, so it helps me get into the business mode of that side of football. Just be able to try to find a way to take care of yourself and yourself in the future and your family. So I don't really stress too much about it. I just see it as like God's glory for these people to hit me up and put their career on me. I just feel like it's some type of blessing.
Yeah. Now, what kind of resources, whether it's at Tennessee or the University of Memphis, do they put in front of you to like help you? Obviously, you may have your own representation outside of the university, but are there other resources behind the scenes, like speakers coming in, talking to you how not to get caught up in these situations? Because we have so many, you know, bad examples of bad business deals that you definitely don't want to get caught up into.
Yeah. Most definitely. I know the people that we work with here at Memphis, we had a meeting a while ago, I think during fall camp. They just telling us, you know, what to do and what not to do, and if we have some type of like sponsors or something, like hit us up, or some type of brand hit us up, to just read in it thoroughly, just mostly do your research about them, see if they're legit, see if they are on their stuff, and see if they're on point with everything that they're doing, and just taxes too.
Yeah, that right there, bro. Man, everybody thinks that they see that big number, they're like, I'm getting all that, man. I'm gonna go buy a car. Let me go get this house, put a down payment.
Yeah. Give it back somehow.
That shit's gone immediately. But okay, so this is one. I have a couple more things for you. Then I'm gonna do a couple of rapid fire questions for you, a little this or that. But When it comes to that FedEx deal that was signed this offseason, you guys with that, football program and just the athletic department have a good relationship with FedEx. The NIL money's flowing in. How, for you, like as a player, how has that showed itself? I get if you understand, catch my drift. How has that sort of showed itself as far as like opportunities, putting yourself out in the public, getting money for that, NIL funds? How has that looked? Because I don't think a lot of people understand how that works when they just see, $5 million going straight to Memphis football for, NIL funds.
Yeah, most definitely. I feel like if anything, it's put us more out there in the community. So more teaming up with like FedEx and just showing how much of a family we can actually be. So I know the last event we did, we helped FedEx package like over 10,000 like bags for U.S. soldiers to send them overseas. So I was there, Jordan Greer was there, Mario Anderson and Seth and Jalen, I think, was there.
Yeah.
So we was there for a good like 3-4 hours, just packaging stuff.
So they're making you work for it.
Yeah, you gonna work for it for sure. But like, it's nothing. It's not too much grueling work. So like, you enjoying yourself, getting to know new people. Like I met, man, like ain't no telling how many people I met there, but just talking to them, just seeing how they got up to Memphis, seeing what they doing with FedEx too. So it was a great time. So it most definitely helps us get out, just see the city more, and just be able to get connected to the people.
Yeah, and it's badass. I can tell you that. I graduated in 2017. I'm checking my watch every day for my back pay. I need just a tad bit of back pay, bro. All right, now a little this or that, then we'll let you roll, man. Know you're a busy man. All right, so I'm gonna give you two sides. You pick one. Very simple. Plan the run, plan the pass.
Right.
Okay.
I love it.
Sack or TFL?
Sack.
Not attack, but you have more opportunities for the TFLs.
That sack game changer.
Sacks get you paid, baby.
Yeah. Will you consider yourself a little pass rusher, even though you're inside linebacker?
Yeah, I say I'm a pass rusher first at heart.
All right, to watch. National Football League, college football.
Oh, that's crazy. I'll probably do college just because it's more explosive plays, a little bit more.
Yeah. More coverage busts, so we can do it over time. Memphis barbecue, since you got here in Memphis barbecue or Memphis wings?
I'll say the barbecue right now.
What's the spot?
I've done one and onlys, but I haven't been to anywhere else right now.
Okay. Elwood Shack right there by campus.
Elwood Shack.
Check that. Those ribs are crazy. And I think the downtown, if you've ever been to Blue City Cafe, they got good ribs too.
Blue City Cafe.
Right. Yep. Now, final one: Drake or Kendrick?
Hey, that was gonna be my question. I wanted to ask one time.
I need to know.
I like Kendrick. Kendrick smoother than me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Who you bumping before the game? I want to know that. That's one of my big questions to players because I want to know what you listen to before the game. And is there like a shift, like right before the game, where you might be chilling, but I need to hear some Future or some D-Lo or something? What you listening to?
Recently, the past 2 games, I ain't been listening to nobody right now. I just been, in my own head, just thinking about stuff. But as of last year, I would say I was a big. Who was I listening to the most? Probably a little bit more Future. Yeah.
I love it. I'm big.
Man, that's a deep catalog right there, man. That's a
Yeah.
deep ass catalog.
Definitely.
I used to date that back to like the early 2000s with Future.
Yeah, Boss Man D-Lo going crazy right now. I love it. He going crazy.
Most definitely.
But you said lately you're just in your head, not listening to anything?
Yeah,
I love that. That's some psycho shit. I love that. That's
I need my linebackers psyching themselves out with no music. Damn.
I
love it. Well, Elijah, good luck this week. I appreciate you joining us, man.
Thank y'all.
Appreciate you, bro.
Appreciate for having me on.
Yeah, you need splash plays. You need big, explosive chunk plays in the passing game, and you need to create havoc on defense, whether that's sacks, tackles for loss, turnovers, forcing mistakes. You don't need to be stuck in neutral for half of the game. You need to be consistent, being able to gain chunk yardage, keep the chains moving, and on defense, be able to get extra possessions.
Hold them under 120 yards rushing, and I feel really good about where you're at. Because DJU, when that offense isn't pacing itself very well, when he doesn't have a good run game, he's screwed. If people start pinning their ears back, you can blitz him too, because he'll miss things. He's not going to find everybody. He misses throws constantly. So I think if they stop the run well enough, I think it could be a really good day for this defense, because I'm not worried about I'm not worried about their offensive skill players. I'm not worried about DJU. I'm sorry. I'm just not. I know it's a step up in competition compared to the first 2 games, but there's nothing scary about the passing offense at Florida State right now.
Tune in to On the Bluff with Christian Fowler and Gabe Kuhn every Tuesday at 12 p.m. on the Bluff City Media YouTube channel.
Stuff was hard, man. I was trying to make ends meet. I remember this like it was yesterday, man. It was a Friday night. I came back in from working a long little day of work. I came back to my crib and I had an eviction notice on my door. I just prayed that night and I'm like, God, whatever you want me to be doing, if I'm doing the right thing, if this camera is the right thing, like just let me know. I woke up that next morning, man. I had a text from John like, yo, has anybody signed you? Well, I'm finna sign you. And it was like literally that next morning, man, I dropped my phone. And my mom's house was probably 3 blocks away. I run over to my mom's house. I show her the message. She starts going crazy. She's like, my prayers are working. And I was just like, I prayed all last night. I was on a flight to Memphis 2 days later. And it's just like Memphis is definitely love out there, man. So I love it. You know what I'm saying? At first, I was a little skeptical. I ain't gonna lie. Definitely was a little skeptical at first about the M. But, man, it's definitely been love.
Tune into the No Bluffing Podcast with your hosts, Christian Ingram and Evan Hayes, every Monday at 12 p.m. only on the Bluff City Media YouTube channel.
All right, it's come to that point in the show where we have to talk about what has been wrecking my brain for the past 3 weeks, Kai. You know what that is? Memphis on the road, Doak Campbell Stadium, 11 a.m. on Saturday, ESPN. And it's strange to see. Like, I try to, pay attention to just what the keys of the game and how the game's going to go and what both teams are looking like. But I can't avoid the Vegas number. And I don't know if you saw this. It opened at 1.5. Mm-hmm. Florida State was favored by. And since then, it's grown all the way to 6.5 or 7, depending on what you're looking at. So I'm wondering if they know something I don't. Right. But the first question I want to approach is, if Memphis wins this ball game, does this put them in the driver's seat for the Group of 5 spot in the college football playoff early in the season? Of course.
Yeah. If you'd asked me before the season, I would have said absolutely. After this game, the Boston College game and the Georgia Tech game, I'm not 100% sure. I think a team like Boise State, especially because I think Oregon's going to find a way to win ball games, even though it was a loss. I think a 34-37 loss that they had. We talked about that before the game. They lost in the way I thought they needed to if they were going to have to win the ball game. I think that loss might hold more weight over a Florida State win, especially if they start the season 0-3 before they really get into the meat and potatoes of their schedule in terms of difficulty. I think a team like Boise State probably still holds that edge. But what I think Memphis has going for them is that if they can beat Florida State, they can go down there and beat Florida State, right? The amount of confidence in it, because it doesn't matter what the record is. If you go beat a Florida State team in Doak in that situation and kind of prove to yourself that you are what you think you are, I think that confidence boost will be enough to propel them to try to make a run to going undefeated. And if they do that, then, all bets will be off. And I think that's what Memphis should be focusing on is just running the table to where it doesn't matter if you beat those guys or not.
Yeah, and I'll say this, like when I asked this question about driver's seat doesn't make a damn right now, because the driver's seat means, you're in that spot today. You could get knocked off tomorrow. You 100%. Lose one game in conference, you're screwed. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like, so I do think it puts them in the driver's seat in the sense that they would have a win over Florida State and Tulane and Boise State lost the game. I think it's just that simple, putting it that way. So I think it would put them in the driver's seat. But right now, going into week 3, it doesn't really make a damn. But I do think if they lose this game, not all hope's lost. You still have the AAC conference to go potentially win. You have a lot out in front of you still. And if you were able to run the table, you're going to have a hell of a shot to potentially get into the college football playoff regardless. And I know how hard that is. Way easier said than done. But you're still going to have that opportunity. Now, when we talk about like how Memphis wins this game, that's where it gets a little tricky to me, because like the two teams that have played Florida State, yeah, they ran the hell out of the ball, right? But they had the ACC bodies. They had some returning O-linemen. And here's the other thing that really, I think, separated it. Thomas Castellanos can run the hell out of the ball for Boston College, and Haynes King could run the hell out of the ball for Georgia Tech. Seth Hennigan doesn't have that type of, ability. So I think, Florida State, I'm sure, for the past 2 weeks with the bye week, I'm sure they've been trying to lock in, get their front seven right, make sure they stop the run. But I think this game, truthfully, if Memphis wants to win, it has to be on the right arm of Seth Hennigan and the route running, the deep playability of Rock Taylor and Demir Blankenship. That's what I see offensively for this team, even though I think that they could exploit them in the run game if they use it timely and correctly.
100%. And I think I'm glad you talked about how the teams were constructed, right? Because Memphis is not constructed like Boston College and Georgia Tech, but they don't have to be to win the game. If you watch them, their defensive backs aren't world beaters, and there was a ton of opportunity to exploit mismatches, especially in the deep passing game. And Seth Hennigan and those receivers are the exact type of prototypes to exploit that. So I think there is a huge opportunity for Memphis to be explosive in the passing game, especially on early downs when you're not really expecting it. Those guys aren't really expecting it, and they're not going to get off a fantastic pass rush. I think there's a ton of opportunity for Memphis to exploit that early on. So I think that they could still control the game and keep the ball moving, keep the clock moving by getting those same first downs by throwing the ball. It doesn't matter how you get it. Get first downs, keep the clock moving, score in the red area. That's my keys to victory. Keep the clock moving, get those first downs, score in the red area, make those drives count. Because a lot of times these teams get in these situations and they'll move the ball. They'll get, they'll get a lot of yards, right? But finishing those drives in the end zone, or at least with field goals, is the most important. You have to have sustained scoring drives. And
the truth of the matter is, Memphis's offensive line, I know everybody's going to talk about the run game and trying to exploit that front seven for Florida State, but they got to keep Seth upright. Because as much as we have been shitting directly on that Florida State front seven and that front four, they can get after the passer, man. Like Patrick Payton is no joke coming off the edge. Neither is Marvin Jones Jr. They have some guys on the interior that can press the pocket. That's going to be the biggest point of contention for me heading into this game that we have to pay attention to. And I had my producer on my radio show ask me this question. It made me laugh because there's no real good answer for it right now. He asked me, with what Florida State has done through 2 games offensively, what do you think Mike Norvell is drawing up right now plan to try to exploit Memphis? And I go, I know what he wants to draw up. You know what I mean? I know what he wants to do. He wants to get the run game going, find some deep shots downfield, see if DJ, you can go complete them. But at the same time, DJ has just looked like a non-factor, man. Missing throws, uncomfortable when he's pressured. Like, I know what Norvell's going to want to do, but I don't know if he's going to be able to do it. They're going to have to run the ball at a very high clip, or their offense is still going to be stuck in the mud.
Yeah, and I forget the kid's name, number 13, but he's out for Florida State.
Jalen Lucas.
Yes, he's out. So their biggest weapon, their most diverse weapon, most explosive weapon is not playing for them. So that's going to be something that factors into the game plan as well. But I kind of had a question, shift the gears here a little bit. I don't know what he's like. What is Memphis' kicking situation like? Do they have a reliable kicker?
It's all right.
It's all right. To me, that's one of the biggest.
They have Caden Costa from Ole Miss, and he's solid. He doesn't have like a boomer leg, but you get him 45 yards and under, it's pretty close to automatic.
Yeah, that's going to be very important to me because, like I said, you want to score touchdowns. That is the optimal situation, right? But with teams like Florida State that haven't shown you the ability to score in bunches, getting points at the end of these drives are going to be critical. So even if it's just a field goal, the kicking game is going to be a huge part of this game, in my opinion. Getting those scoring drives and giving you a little bit of momentum, because it's much better. I know people say they hate the field goal situations, but scoring 3 at the end of the drive is much better than scoring 0. So
and with this Florida State team, man, 3 means something.
Yes, 100%.
Because it's not like they're scoring in bunches. So 3 means something, especially if you start stacking them up on top of each other. Now, I'm going to give my prediction as the show ends, but what's your prediction for this game?
My prediction, and this is going to sound a little crazy, I think we're going to see a ton of points. I think we're going to see like a 34, and I'm rolling with the Tigers here. I'm seeing like a 34-28 Tigers victory. I think it is going to be a little bit of a Memphis getting out hot, Florida State responding because their season's on the line, right? And their morale, they have to have some type of pride. And I think they fight back. But I think ultimately the Tigers find a way. I think Rock Taylor and those guys out there, receiver, have a big day. I think Hennigan has a big day. And I think there's going to be some spots where they find a way to create a turnover. I think, Florida State's going to get desperate, maybe do some trick plays or find themselves where the receivers throwing the ball down front. I think Memphis.
No, I know Norvell's a trick play guy, and I think Silverfield already predicted this week in his pressers that he said second drive they're going to try a trick play. Where do you stand on this? This is real quick, and I hate to cut you off like that, but where do you stand on the fact, like, Florida State, if Memphis gets up 14-0 in the first quarter, first half, like, what the response is something you have to watch, right? Like, they could sort of fold in on themselves, start arguing on the sideline, get uncomfortable, or they could say, season's on the line, guys, let's let it loose. Who gives a shit?
Oh, yeah, 100%. That is, I talked about the fact that they will show heart and respond. But I think it depends on how it happens too. Like, if it's DJU coming out there and stinking it up early and throwing a pick or two, or having a fumble and then you have some terrible turnovers, that is a situation where I think you can see the Florida State team going to a tank. And that's not just from a player's perspective, from a coach's perspective too, because then you lose all hope of anything. I mean, you've had 2 weeks to get right. You sat there and you tried all the adjustments. You've gone through everything in the book to try to fix it. And if they come out there and turnovers and DJU looks like crap still, that is a situation where I can see them turning into a team that folds and goes to the tank. But from everything I've seen from Norvell, from everything you've later told me of them, I don't think that'll be the case. I think that they'll find a way to try to show some type of heart.
All right, now our little G5 check-in. We've already talked about the 2 teams that played really well this past weekend. NIU, I'm going to leave on the outside because I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I don't think I have a lot of Northern Illinois fans listening right this second, but at the same time, if you are listening, I'm sorry. I don't think you'll stick in the top 25 all year. I don't think you have a chance to be the college football playoff group of 5 representative. Sorry. I think it's a very low percentage chance that happens. But Tulane played really damn well. And what really kind of surprises me, against Kansas State, we know how they play under Chris Kleiman. It's a very hard-nosed, let's stop the run, let's run the ball. Mekhi Hughes, nice day at the office, man. 128 yards. And then I'm impressed, man. Darian Mensah, who kind of surprised us because you had Ty Thompson and you had Kai Horton, who have, Ty Thompson, former 5-star. Kai Horton started the game last year against Ole Miss at home, gave Ole Miss all that they wanted. Obviously, they lost the game, but gave them all that they wanted, and you thought Kai Horton could potentially start this year. It was Darian Mensah, who's a redshirt freshman. That kid's got game, man.
Yeah.
342 yards, 2 TDs in this game. Like, that's they are very legitimate. And it feels like John Sumrall came in, didn't skip a beat.
Yeah, I like that team a lot. And shout out to my guy Cole Hurd, who's the GM down there at Tulane. He was he started off as just a staffer here at Jacksonville State and worked his way up. I mean, he's our age, so to go from where he was 8 years ago with us at that level and to work his way to be a 30-year-old GM at a major group of 5 school. That is a major program down there with some really good resources. I think Tulane's on the up and up. And like you said, getting a coach like John Sumrall is going to do a lot for them. When you lose a guy like Willie Fritz, normally you don't replace him with a guy that could be arguably better at G5 level. So I think they're a good program that's trending upwards. And I like what he was kind of saying after the game too. Like, he didn't give we're just happy to be here speech. Like, no, we expected to compete. We expected to be here. We should have won that game. We had chances to win that game. So I like that mindset, and they're going to be held in a group of 5.
And then Boise State didn't get anything out of Maddox Madsen, 17 for 40. But I mean, there's two words, Ashton Genty.
Man,
I mean,
that was so frustrating.
He's a problem. I don't care who he's playing. He's a problem.
Yeah, that was frustrating watching the game. I've been doing my thing with, SI, and I wrote about Genty before the game. And I'm like, man, this is going to be the biggest challenge that the Oregon defense plays maybe all year. And he got out there and he proved everything that I was saying. I was so happy to see him do his thing. But just kind of talk about their coaching from a quick standpoint. Ashton Genty does not touch the ball. Well, excuse me, he only touched the ball twice in their last 2 possessions.
Yeah.
Inexcusable in that situation. Maddox Madsen went like 17 for 40 or something like crazy like that. why are we still dropping back throwing the ball? You had a lead or were tied in both of those situations. There's no reason to come out there going, 5-7 with Maddox Madsen. And there's a situation before the half, before I pass it back to you. They were up 17
in a 9-minute period. In a 9-minute period, they gave up a punt return and a kick return.
Oh, that broke the back, man. In that third quarter, that
and they still had a chance to win the damn game.
In my opinion, should have won the game. And I think there's a situation that kind of reflected the coaching mindset. Right before the half, they're up 17-14. They drive the ball down the field and they get to the 2-yard line. There's 20 seconds left and you have 2 timeouts. Instead of giving the ball to the best player in the country in that situation, you throw the ball twice with Maddox Madsen. And I want to shoot the coach a smidge of bail because I get what they saw. The play was wide open. The tight end was wide open.
Sure.
But Maddox Madsen, in all due respect, is not that guy. You don't put the game of the hands. You don't put the hands of the game with that guy. That guy is not going to be the guy to bring you home. Even though he was open, take your ego out of it, coach. I know you drew up a beautiful play, and in theory, it should work every time. But you got to know your personnel. You have the best player in the country, in my opinion, pound for pound, at running back. You have a timeout and the ball on the 2-yard line with 20 seconds left. Hand the ball off, man. And I tweeted that at halftime. I said this could come back to bite them. A 24-14 game with the ball back after halftime is much different than the 20-14 game. So they end up kicking a field goal. They go up by 6 points. And I'm like, man, they lose the game by 3 points. If they had gone, and I have no doubt in my mind, GT, with 2 attempts to get into the end zone, is going to get to the end zone. If you have that momentum going to the second half, I think it's a totally different ball game. And they end up losing the game by 3 points. And when they should have won by 1 at the very least, I just
dare I say it, man. They coached and they played toward the back half of the second or the third quarter. Like, back half from the third quarter on, they coached and they played like they didn't expect to be in that game. That's kind of how it felt to me.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate. They should have expected it to be in that game after watching that first week with Oregon. His Idaho 10-point game. Like,
I want to shoot him a little bit. I don't know, but maybe GT was dealing with some cramps. Maybe there was an injury or something. Maybe I'm going to try to shoot him a little bit of bail. But if not, there's no reason why the guy should only touch the ball twice in the last 2 drives of the game.
Now, on the not so positive side with the group of 5, Liberty, I mean, they're still going to be undefeated because they have an easy schedule. But buddy, it don't look good for them right now. They do not look like a team that I'm scared of at all. I think that App State game, we're going to have to circle that one, and we will highlight that on the show when we get there. And then I want to do sort of a new segment with teams that we thought would be in the conversation that we're eliminating. Like, we could just put the X up. It's done. It's absolutely done for them. UTSA, done. No chance. Absolutely no. They had the easiest schedule in the American Athletic Conference. They had it all set up for them. 49 to 10 or 49-3? It was 49-3 till late in that game. They got their ass kicked by Texas State. Wasn't even close.
Yeah, I'm with you. Just with my team, I'm going to have to, hate to do it. The Jacksonville State Gamecocks, man, listen, I just got to be honest. It's not happening this season. Yeah. And I think that's okay. It's our actual first year as an FBS program. Last year was a probationary period. We only made the bowl game because not enough teams qualified, and we went 9-4. There was a ton of momentum, and we had a ton of players from the previous staff, a ton of COVID kids, 6-7-year kids that were very experienced, and maybe we were a little bit ahead of the curve going 9-4, beating Louisiana Lafayette in the bowl game.
Sure.
Getting off to an 0-2 start for the first time since 2009. That is something that hasn't happened here in a very long time, 15 years. So that is a little bit jarring being a part of this program, but I do think that making a bowl game is still very realistic with this schedule. I think we found our quarterback in Tyler Huff, the Furman transfer, and at least we could take that. But 6-6 should be the goal. Making a bowl game should be the goal. And if Jacksonville State fans are realistic, that would be a huge deal, going to bowl games in your first 2 seasons as an FBS program, the first official season as an FBS program this season. That's realistic. That should be the goal. We got to cut out the conference championship talk and maybe make it a playoff talk going 11-1-ish. That ain't happening this season.
Yeah. Sometimes you're a little over your skis and you're, early, and you start creating these expectations, and those expectations may be a little bit too high. So I agree with you. Now let's get to our quick bet. We'll wrap this up with our bets. We have lock, stock, and bonus. My lock this week, I'm going to go Bama -16 over Wisconsin. I think they wiped the floor with Wisconsin. I don't care if they're going on the road. I don't think Wisconsin's any good at all. Their offense is absolutely miserable. They're stuck in the mud. They're no good. They're dirty, rotten. I don't care what the hell you want to say about them. They cannot get it get going. And Luke Fickell, kind of on fraud watch for me right now. I know it's maybe a little too early in his tenure, but it's just he hasn't turned it around like I thought he would. I thought he was Big Ten made, and he doesn't have that team ready to go. So I'm going to take Bama minus the 16. I don't think Wisconsin – I mean, I think it's going to be an uphill battle to score an offensive touchdown, and I truly believe Bama swarming on defense may cause a couple of turnovers. I think there's a couple of turnovers in Wisconsin's bag this week.
Yeah, 100%. I'm with you there. I agree with that. There's nothing too deep to read into that. I think Alabama's roster is top to bottom better. They have a quarterback that's played on the road in these crazy environments. So Camp Randall's not going to be, even though it's a fantastic environment, it's not going to be something that shell shocks that team. Pretty veteran-laden team. You got Malachi Moore and Jahad Campbell and Deontay Lawson leading them on defense. They'll be prepared and be ready to go.
Mm-hmm. Now give me your lock.
My lock is Arizona State minus 1.5. I respect everything that Texas State's doing, right? I really like that program. I like J.J. Kinney, what they're doing. But Arizona State, if you watch them play the first 2 games of the season, they look like a different team. Scatterboo running the ball. Shout out to Kenny Dillingham. Hope we can get him on the show. Yep. This guy is turning that thing around. And if you watched them last year, they competed with some teams. They competed with Colorado down to the very end of the game. They competed with, I believe it was Washington State to the very end of the game last season. There was a couple teams that they took to the brink. So I think they're a team that's been trending this way. And I like them with the 1.5 points. I'll take that.
Hey, disgusting stat line, though, and the fact that there's something missing from it. Cam Scatebo against Mississippi State, 33 carries, 262 yards. 0 touchdowns. That's just brutal. You got to give him the payoff when you play when you're running the ball like that. My shock, I'm going to go South Carolina plus 7.5 versus LSU. I guess LSU, this could be a get right week. I understand that. I get that. But at the same time, I'm going to go with the team that just handled business against Kentucky like no one expected. 31-6, took off in that second half. I really like Lenoris Sellers. I think he's an absolute stud. Dylan Stewart, I believe that's his name. Their end. That's a first-round pick. Yeah. I mean, that guy can get after the passer like just about, some of the best players in the country at the edge position. So I think they have a lot more talent than we gave them credit for in the early season. I'm not saying they're going to win outright, but I certainly think they can cover a touchdown.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And that's a coaching staff coaching for their job. So they're going to be coaching with their butts on fire all year. I like that. And my shock of the week is kind of a weird one, right? I think everybody expected Oklahoma to be a competitive team, but the way they looked last week, against Houston, I think people are going to be a little bit down on them going into this game against Tulane. And I think they're going to cover the 13.5 spread. I think they're going to go out there and dominate the game. I think they're going to put up 35, 42 points, and they'll cover that game. That's my shock of the week. I'm going to go Oklahoma minus 13.5.
Okay. And then give me your bonus because I went extra with my bonus.
My bonus, I'm sticking with Alabama overs until somebody stops that offense. So I'm sticking with Alabama over. They had me a little bit scared last week. I'm not going to lie, but that explosion at the end of the fourth quarter, I mean, you scored 3 touchdowns in the last 7 minutes of the game to cover that. I think I'm going to stick with that offensive because they were putting up, massive yards in terms of production, but getting them called back by silly penalties. I think they're going to go handle business at Wisconsin.
All right. Now I had a lot of directions to go with the bonus. I did, but I'm going to go with 1 and 1 only. I'm going with Memphis plus the 6.5 versus FSU. We're going to get the outright win. I'm looking at it about 34-21. I think it's going to be a deal. They're going to lay it on them, and that's how we're going to end the show. Episode 3 of G5 Classified has been great. Kyron, appreciate it. Kenny, appreciate it. If you're out there, make sure you like, subscribe, go Apple, Spotify. Make sure you follow all of our different podcasts. You have the Anthony Sain Show. You have my other one, the On the Bluff podcast. So make sure you follow all of it. But we'll talk to you next week.
Thank you for listening to this episode of G5 Classified. If you enjoyed this episode, leave a rating and a review wherever you download your podcasts. To watch this episode, head over to the Bluff City Media YouTube channel. We'll see you back here next week.